So when I hear people, especially women, talking about how the tough times, i.e., the horrible things they endured at the hands of their partner, how that brought them together, I hear this. I'm so glad we survived what you put me through. And I hear that and translate it that way because what we're talking about here, what's happening here, is we're confusing closeness with investment. In my experience, I find that women are more likely to take full responsibility for the relationship. And what I mean by that is when they enter a relationship, they take responsibility for if the relationship is functioning, how it's functioning, if it's going to last, and making sure that it does. And because of the way that women have been conditioned, that can look a lot of ways, right? Pretzeling oneself, making oneself smaller or bigger, reading a bunch of different communication books, trying out different conflict styles, basically doing everything that's within your control, because we can only control ourselves, to essentially get the partner, get the person that they're with to act and behave differently. And not just differently, as a person that cares for and respects the relationship. So I want to say clearly, before we get into whether or not tough times that people put you through actually draw you closer, women are already self-reflecting in relationships, and they're self-reflecting outside of relationships. We do not, in fact, need traumatic, abusive situations and scenarios to happen to us in order to have the capacity to self-reflect, grow, and learn about ourselves. Recently, I was listening to a We Can Do Hard Things episode, and they use these two phrases that I want to talk about here: the spotlight and the cleanup crew. So when your partner is themselves in their actions, behaviors, and decisions, the majority of the issues you have to overcome as a couple in that relationship, it puts the other person, the other partner, in the position to be the spotlight, as in the identifier of the problem, and the cleanup crew, as in the person who gets the problem solved or resolved. This inherently creates an unbalanced power dynamic, right? We have one person whose actions and behaviors in consistent disregard for the relationship continue to threaten the relationship. And then we have one person in the role of consistently, constantly trying to save it, which means over time, their entire identity starts to revolve around how to put out these mini fires. They're coming up with metaphors in the shower of how to explain the concept of apology or infidelity to their partner. They're on TikTok, literally consuming the content that their partner should be seeking out instead, right? They're seeking out couples therapy or individual therapy. They're adapting their behaviors and their whole personhood to try to essentially get this partner, this relationship, to work the way that it's supposed to. And this is a lot of investment. It's for this also women feel such a sunk cost fallacy in terms of why it's so difficult to leave, right? The sunk cost fallacy is, well, I've already invested this much. If I leave now, it was all for nothing. And so this can create the illusion of closeness for a couple reasons. One is you're essentially showing another person that you will be there for them regardless of how you treat them. For people that have abusive tendencies or are abusers, actually, this is what they're looking for, right? A person that they can kind of treat the way they want to unconditionally, that they do not have to have empathy for, that they do not have to have regard for, that they can consistently mistreat and abuse over time, that will, instead of holding them accountable, internalize it and continue to pretzel themselves in order to try to get some modicum of respect or care. The other reason that this can feel like closeness is because when you're trying to figure out how to get another person to treat you well, you end up sort of becoming an expert in that person, right? And especially when you're trying to avoid conflict or avoid situations where abuse can occur, you sort of become an expert in their moods, the things that set them off, and this can perform a sort of mimicry of intimacy. The last thing that kind of creates this sense of closeness when you're in tough times that are really just abusive dynamics playing out over a long period or patterned bad and disrespectful behaviors is that the repair cycle often gives you 2 or 3 days of paradise, 2 or 3 days within your relationship where you see this person as what they could be, where they're living into their potential, they're keeping their commitments, they're loving, they're kind, they're generous, etc. But I want to ask a serious question from a tender place. Does it last? Is that progress, is that change really sustained? And does that person actually feel closer to you, or do you feel closer to them? It's easy enough to create and measure closeness by who we draw near to us, right? I can say that we've gotten closer right now just by me moving my body closer to the screen. But the fact of the matter is real connection and real closeness requires effort and intention from both parties. There's a sense of mutuality and reciprocity in authentic connection. And honestly, if you're so busy putting out the fires that somebody else is setting in the house that you both live in, there isn't much time for that person to get to see you and understand you beyond you being a thing that does things for them, a thing that forgives them, a thing they solicit absolution from, forgiveness from, grace from, or a thing that they punish, antagonize, demean, and belittle when they feel called out or are being held accountable. At that point, your identity within the relationship, right? Think about that spotlight or the cleanup crew. The spotlight is annoying. We hate the spotlight if we're not doing work to become accountable, caring people. So you're either in the way, the buzzkill, the always on my back, the why are you nagging me, or you're the thank you so much, baby, I'll never do that again cleanup crew. And I think every human being in a relationship, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, and friends beyond the binary, deserve to be able to bring their whole personhood into the relationship, deserve to be able to have their own experiences and struggles supported and cared for by their partners, and shouldn't have all of their time, energy, and frankly, life sucked away by trying to grow closer to a person that won't stop threatening them or the relationship they share. Relationships are co-developed. And so if one person's actions and behaviors are continuing to sabotage and undermine the relationship without any meaningful indication of progress or commitment to change, I don't think that's a safe place for anybody to be.